Hello, I'm Bruce Lorincz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose. And we've had several books we've read recently to some of our younger readers in Wadsworth, and certainly it's a great way to go ahead and get ready for school, to go ahead and read using all the skills that our teachers have given us. I'm going to take my mask off so I'm a little easier to hear and go ahead and tell you about the two books we're going to read today. Prior to that, though, I would like to go ahead and take my hat off to John Matting, who was coordinator here at WCTV for 30 years. And John helped me a great deal in producing some shows over the years, and really can't say enough about his leadership here. And Wadsworth's a very creative community with a lot of very unique shows, and we certainly hope that he has a wonderful retirement. Our first book we're going to read today is Thy Friend Obadiah, and Obadiah is kind of a name we don't hear very much anymore, and it really comes from the Quakers. They were a peace-loving group of religious advocates in the Philadelphia area, and they expanded, and this story takes place on the island south of Boston, Nantucket Island, which is way down here. Boston is way up here, and it's way down here in the Atlantic Ocean. So just a little idea of geography there. And my daughter was really a minister in Lexington, Massachusetts for 6 years, and so we know the area just a little bit because of her activities. Thy Friend Obadiah takes place in the late 1600s, so some of the language is going to be a little bit different, and that makes you follow along maybe a little bit closer, and we appreciate that. Whenever Obadiah went, a seagull was following him. It followed him all the way to the candle makers, and it was waiting for him when he came out of the shop. When he was sent to the wharf for a fresh codfish, it hopped along behind him. And at night, when he would go to bed, he could see it from his window when it was perched on the chimney of the shed facing into the wind. Of all the seagulls on Nantucket Island, why did this one go everywhere Obadiah went? On first day, everyone dressed up warmly and went to meeting. The Starbuck family formed a line, a little parade. First father and mother, then Moses and Asa and Rebekah and Obadiah and Rachel. Behind them came the seagull, hopping along as if it were going to meeting too. "Go away," said Obadiah. The bird fluttered on, but it soon came back. "Thee has a friend, Obadiah," said father as he turned in at the meeting house gate. "Obadiah has a friend," said Moses. "Obadiah has a friend," said Rebekah. "Ask thy friend to come into meeting," said Asa. Rachel didn't tease. She tried to take Obadiah's hand, but he didn't want to hold anyone's hand. He picked up a pebble and threw it at the bird. He missed. The seagull flew out of sight, but when meeting was over, there it was, waiting for him. It got so that Obadiah didn't want to go out of his house. At breakfast, father said, "Obadiah, how is thy friend?" "What friend?" asked Obadiah, his mouth full of mush and plum jam. "Thy very own seagull," said Asa. Rebekah giggled. "The bird is not my friend," Obadiah shouted. Mother raised a finger. "Don't distress thyself, Obadiah," she said. "I think it is very nice
that one of God's creatures favors thee. Well, I don't like it, said Obadiah. Seagulls don't follow anyone else around. Soon after breakfast, it began to snow. In the afternoon, Mother wrapped a wooden scarf around Obadiah and sent him to Jacob Slade's mill with some money and a sack for flowers. The bird was nowhere to be seen. Maybe it doesn't like the snow, Obadiah told himself. Maybe it flew away to the mainland. He was so glad it wasn't hopping along after him that he made duck tracks all the way up Jacob Slade's hill. The miller filled the flour sack, and Obadiah gave him the money. Mother had tucked in his mitten. Keep this, lad, Jacob Slade said, giving him a penny, and don't let it bum a hole in thy pocket. On the way home, Obadiah tried to slide on a patch of ice, but he skidded and fell head over heels. His hat went flying, snow got into his ears and in his boots. His breeches got wet, and so did the sack of flour. His knee hurt, and the penny was gone forever in the snowbank. He was all alone on the hill. Shivering and sniffling, he picked himself up and limped home. Seagulls were perched on almost every housetop on Orange Street, but he couldn't find the special seagull that had been following him. The birds were faced into the raw east wind and paid no attention to him at all. Mother was very cross about the wet flour. She gave Obadiah a hot bath and dry clothes, and right after supper she made him drink something hot that tasted awful. Is thy knee still hurting thee? She asked. It's better, Obadiah wished. He felt better about the lost penny. Then get into bed. Obadiah said his prayers, and as soon as Mother was gone, he got out of bed and tiptoed to the window. The seagull was not there. He got back into bed again and wondered what had happened. The next day, and the next day, and the day after that, no bird followed Obadiah when he left his house. Every night he looked out of his window, but the seagull didn't come back. Then he saw it down at the wharf. It was with some other gulls where a little fishing boat was docked, but something was wrong. A large rusty fish hook dangled from its beak. That's what happens when thee steals from a fishing line. Serves thee right, Obadiah said, and walked away. He was on the cobblestone street by the blacksmith shop when he discovered that the seagull was hopping along behind him. Obadiah stopped. The bird stopped. The fish hook bobbed in the wind. If thee is quiet, I'll try to get that off thy beak. The seagull didn't move. It won't hurt thee, Obadiah said. The bird allowed him to come near and near. In a moment, the fish hook was in Obadiah's hand. And the seagull was wheeling into the sky, making little mewing sounds. It flew out toward the lighthouse. Obadiah watched until he couldn't see it any longer. Then he threw the rusty hook away and went home. As soon as he opened the front door, Obadiah smelled bread baking. In the kitchen, Mother and Rachel were just taking it out of the oven. Mother cut him a slice of fresh, warm bread and spread it with butter. He sat on the stool to eat it, and between mouthfuls he told them what had happened. "Well," said Rachel, "thee won't see thy silly old bird again." "No," said Obadiah, "I expect I won't." At bedtime, after she had tucked him in, Mother went to the window. "Obadiah," said, "look here." He turned out of bed. "Isn't that thy seagull?" There it was, on the chimney facing into the wind in the clear blue night. "That's him," said Obadiah. "He looks cold out there, Mother." "His feathers kept him warm. But thee doesn't have feathers, Obadiah. Get back into bed quickly before thee takes a chill." Obadiah jumped into bed again, and Mother kissed him good night. The wind whistled around the corner of the house, and Obadiah snuggled down into the quilts. "Mother," "Yes, Obadiah, the seagull is my friend." "I'm glad, Obadiah. Good night." And Mother turned at the door. Her candle flickered and almost went out. "Yes, Obadiah," she said, "since I helped him, I'm his friend too." Well, that was a very interesting story, and it really tells the tale that sometimes you don't really want to go ahead and maybe have a particular individual as your friend, but somehow you just go ahead and tolerate them, and you get to know them more, and suddenly you are in fact a friend, and they may need help. And in this case, Obadiah assisted the seagull, got a fish hook out of his beak, and then certainly the seagull would never forget that, and he really was his friend and really thought so much of Obadiah. So that was a very interesting story on making friends. And maybe you this school year could make a new friend, someone you really didn't know before, maybe someone who's just moved in, maybe someone that came into your school from another school and you didn't know them, and you can go ahead and extend your friendship and really add to your wealth of information and new friends you would make in school. This second book we're going to read is called Swimmy, and it is about a very intelligent little fish, and we'll go ahead and read about Swimmy and what he does to organize things. A happy school of little fish lived in the corner of the sea somewhere. They were all red. Only one of them was as black as the mussel shell. He swam faster than his brothers and sisters. His name was Swimmy. One bad day, a tuna fish, swift, fierce, and very hungry, came darting through the waves. In one gulp, he swallowed all the little red fish. Only Swimmy escaped. He swam away in the deep, wet world. He was scared, lonely, and very sad. But the sea was full of wonderful creatures, and he swam from marvel to marvel. Swiftly, Swimmy was happy again. He was a Medusa made of rainbow jelly. And he saw that Medusa. Boy, that's something. A lobster who walked about like a water-moving machine. Strange fish pulled by invisible thread. A forest of seaweeds growing from sugar earthly rocks. An eel whose tail was almost too far away to remember. A sea anemone who looked like pink palm trees swaying in the wind. Anemones. Then, hidden in the dark shade of the rocks and weeds, he saw a school of little fish, just like his own. "Let's go and swim and play and see things," he said happily. "We can't," said the little red fish. "The big fish will eat us all." "But we can't just lie here," said Swimmy. "We must think of something." Swimmy thought and thought and thought. Then suddenly he says, "I've got it. We are going to swim all together like the biggest fish in the sea." He taught them to swim close together, each in his own place. And when they had learned to swim like one giant fish, he said, "I'll be the eye." And so they swam in the cool morning water and in the midday sun and chased the big fish away. Well, that was quite a story, and I think that shows our ingenuity and initiative. Swimmy said, we're just not going to go ahead and lay around here. We need to go ahead and be active and do some very interesting things. And we can go ahead and see all the marvels of the ocean. We can go ahead and see the eels, and we can go ahead and see all the craters and all the life forms in the bottom of the ocean. And we can go ahead and see the lobsters and everything else. And so he organized everyone, and they listened to him. I think that's one thing about leadership that's really important. Like your teacher is so important, and you need to listen to the teacher because they know so much, and they can help us get us through the day. So it's very important that when the teacher or our parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts say things, we go ahead and listen to them and carry out their directives and objectives and make sure we go ahead and be good listeners and follow through on what they say. And of course, later on, you can be the leader. You can take charge if you're on a team, maybe a soccer team, and you have some young players that haven't played before, and you have the experience, then you can be the leader and tell them kind of what to do. I know that really happens on various teams. We have a lot of students playing soccer and lacrosse and softball and baseball and all sorts of good games we have, and that's good learning situation and developing your leadership and developing. Just like my tie here, the little Mickeys. Mickey had a lot of very good friends. Of course, he had Donald Duck, who sometimes lacked patience and he got upset at times, but certainly Goofy and his friends Daisy Duck and Minnie and Pluto were all his good friends, and they all really did a lot of very nice things together, but they social distance too. Mickey knows that we have to stay 6 feet away, we have to use our masks, and we have to continue to wash our hands and to not join large groups of people in various activities. It's really important. Labor Day is coming up, I think, next Monday, so we need to make sure if we have a cookout or have an activity that we remind our parents not to go have too many people there. Maybe 10 or less would be a good idea. So thanks for viewing Bruce on the Loose. We have a special show next week. We have a show that we had to go to the library. Pete the Cat will go ahead and be featured next week. And we also have a Marvel story about Black Panther. So hope you can join us next week when we have 2 very good shows, very good stories to go with Bruce on the Loose. Thanks very much for viewing.